Alright, another draft physics video presentation brought to you by, I don't know, is the universe, actually. Just happens that way. It all blah 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 blah, and it somehow percolated this moment in time and space. Woo! It's billions of years in the making. Dun, dun, dun. Still a piece of shit. Yeah, so what? It took a billion years to make it. It's still a piece of crap. Crap took billions of years, was in the making. Yeah, just the truth. Anyway, throw away AVC Clubber, so whatever that means. Anyway, that guy's either a nutcase if he believes the nonsense he's spouting, or a con man if he doesn't. You know, these are just such... I'm not saying you're not entitled to voice your opinion, but I'm just saying this is the kind of crap you could type on any video. Anybody could just type this kind of crap, and it really doesn't mean anything. It's just your subjective opinion. It's not really an argument of any kind. Yeah. His videos are ridiculous and only bearable with the sound off. Well, I'd admit he's really hard to listen to sometimes. I have to squint, you know, and I'm like, oh, jeez, he's not going to say that again, is he? You know, it is really difficult sometimes. So I guess it's okay to just point out, you know, this is hard on me. That's okay. But it has to come with some sort of foundational argument and some sort of contextual thing. Like, oh yeah, I've heard him, you know, say things about light bending that's just ridiculous. He's got no evidence. He presents no evidence. He tells us to do the experiments ourselves. He doesn't even show us him doing them. I mean, really bad. You could say something. Put a little more integrity into your conversation in terms of not just saying, I don't like that guy. I mean, yeah. I'd go further and say belief in God should be ridiculed. Well, that's what I said. I would go further than to say the belief in God should be ridiculed. Okay, I don't know how further you'd go. I mean, I'm all for civil wars about lots of subjects, and it'd be really nice just to get done with this religious crap. Just cleanse us of the virus and see what happens. See if people are dumb enough to, go back. As long as they, once you stop them being raised in it, I really don't think it'll grow back. But who knows? People are gotten so fucking stupid. I mean, the stupidity out there is just frightening. Alright, the belief is in direct conflict with any kind of critical thought. Well, logical thought, that's what it's in conflict with logical thought. You don't really have to be critical. You just have to use logic and say, well, where did God come from? You mean he sat around forever and came up with the bad idea of anuses? Idiot. But I don't want to, I mean, I would rather, photosynthesis sounds okay. I just belch now and then and that's it. That's a lot better. Anyway. But I didn't want to start some long exchange about God on a science channel. Well, many channels are, devoted to that, so yeah, you really don't need to. There's a million other channels that can do that. Yes, exactly. Point is, I think you overreacted. I'm just saying, whatever. He basically just said, I believe because I want to, not because it makes any sense. Yeah. So this is just so typical, these frickin' weak-ass people on this planet. You've said create energy. So, this is like the ultimate quote mining. I mean, 2 words out of the whole video, 2 words. Oh, obviously I don't believe you can create energy. Obviously I keep talking. I don't say, hey, somebody just pops into the boat and the electron moves. I never suggest that any source of imbalance being created by any other mechanism, that if you got more rowers going that way in the boat, it means there has to be more swimmers or more rowers in a boat going the opposite way. Yeah, that's what I say overtly. So this is just such scum. This isn't straw man. This is just insane. distortion of the entire theme. I mean, I couldn't have said it more overtly. I've said it repeatedly in videos. I, yes, believe in conservation of energy. It's you people who don't. The bent space made things move. Well, how does bent space have any energy to do that? Where does it create it? How does it create its imbalance engine? Where do you create the energy from? Then you have virtual photons moving magnets around. Well, how the fuck do those virtual things do it? Where's your energy come from? I mean, you people are so despicable. I mean, I don't know how. I'm surprised I'm only as insane as I am. I should be so much more insane considering the shit for brain sea of turd I'm living in. You're such a despicable coward to say this shit, and you don't do anything. You don't produce anything that can be critiqued. You're too much of a coward to come into a live room with me, aren't you? So I can interrogate what the fuck you know about energy, you fucking dumb shit. Alright, the notion of energy in the laws of thermodynamics, right, like your laws of entanglement, your laws of let's create dark matter out of nothing. Let's create an invisible man answer to our mathematical problems. It's quite clear. Well, the law of the fact, okay, that the assumption that the universe is in a balanced state and you're creating imbalances, and the imbalances are what we view as energy. Now, that's not your stupid definition. That's not even thermodynamics definition, but that's the correct definition. There's a substance in the universe called energy, and you only see it when there's an imbalance in it. Alright, it is conserved and can only be transferred from system or body to body. And where have I described anything else in any of the drawings I've made? Where in one single video did I ever suggest the energy just poofs into the rocket ship, or the energy... Where? Where did I ever do that, asshole? Oh, that's right, nowhere. Oh, despicable, lying scum. Or do you also refute the 4 laws of thermodynamics? So again, a completely false premise, false accusations, and then, rhetorical questions completely based on insanely wrong assumptions. I mean, it's disgusting. You're a disgusting liar. Alright, you gallop on your horse for ages, whatever the fuck that means. Oh, that's right, I breathe every day and live on planet Earth. Oh, I'm sorry that offends you, fuckface. Oh, God. Delivering your sermons, yes, with images. Delivering an explanation like everybody else. They have their little silly theories. Now, people like Sean Carroll write whole books on their little fucking multiverses. Delivering their little sermon about the little fantasy bullshit they live in. Talking and talking, but actually say very little. Well, I say that gravitational lensing doesn't happen. I say that wave interference is an explanation for anything that happens in the electromagnetic spectrum. That your interferometer is bullshit, lie. That LIGO isn't measuring the thickness of a hair at 2 trillion miles. And... I mean, I could go on and on. I'm making direct accusations. I'm telling you, right out to your face. I'm saying, can't you answer one fucking question? I mean, Professor Lewin says I should get the Nobel Prize. An MIT professor. He says I should get the Nobel Prize if I can find the magnetic monopoles. Well, I'm telling you, I think they're electrons and protons. And why don't you tell me how an electron and a proton stuck together isn't a perfect definition of a magnet? Why don't you explain to me how if I stick an electron and a proton right next to each other, they would somehow not behave exactly like magnets? Exactly. So that the electron and proton do in fact fit every reasonable citation you could put in a definition of what a magnetic monopole should look like. Why don't you explain to me what a magnetic monopole might look like that would be different than what an electron and proton are? Why don't you do that, asshole? Is that too much? Is it asking too fucking much for you to answer a simple question? I should get the Nobel Prize if I can find the thing. I'm telling you, It quacks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it has webbed feet like a duck, it has feathers like a fucking duck, it has a digestive system just like a duck. It has every fucking feature of a duck, and you're telling me it's not a duck. And you're doing it with this arrogance, and yet you haven't answered the question. Oh God, amazing! These people are just such. Who hatched this scum? What kind of fucking ragged whore was your goddamn mother, and what kind of fucking moron was your father to raise such an asshole who talks shit like this, who sits there and makes accusations that are completely false, has false premises, and then uses baby talk. You gallop on your horse for ages. Well, who the fuck doesn't do that? Who the fuck couldn't I say to that on this planet? Who the fuck couldn't I say, you have a smelly asshole? Who the fuck couldn't I say that about, asshole? Oh, God, you're stupid. All right. Amongst the sermons, there is the vast sprinkling of nonsense and neurotic misinformation and jargon. So what's the jargon? Where's the jargon word I've used? I sit there and I've cited all the words in physics, right? Momentum and velocity and acceleration and force, and I'm defining each one of the words and giving you an explicit definition, one that you could sit there and quote and say you could explain how those definitions are wrong. I mean, I have a video. It's called Definitions. Go look it up. Asswipe. It's in a playlist, the subject playlist, I believe. Why don't you do that shit for brain, you fucking weasel, you goddamn piece of crap as a human being, you despicable fucking coward. Alright, what the hell are you doing? Now, what the hell are you fucking goddamn doing? You're just such a piece of crap. You have the opportunity on the peer review YouTube medium to assist listeners with specific concepts. And so somehow I haven't been specific enough. I was specific enough to talk about, well, what's the shape of a gravity lens? Oh, that's right. It's exactly the opposite of what we consider a magnifying lens. Exactly the opposite. And yet somehow it performs the same. No, it doesn't. It's theoretically stupid. All right. Instead, you infuse nonsense that borders on superstition and cultism. And exactly where did you quote any of that? Oh, that's right, you didn't. Oh, you should withdraw at least 23% of your commentary and then apologize to the good folk of YouTube community. Well, the YouTube community is obviously imbeciles. You're obviously a fucking cowardy, shit-talking fucking imbecile, an unaccountable weasel who just talks absolute fucking shit and thinks you have the right to do it. Well, if I ran the fucking world, you wouldn't. Okay, that's clear. You fucking piece of shit. So let's see your response. I won't block you yet. Let's see if you have anything to say in your defense, you fucking lying weasel. Let's see if you got it. Let's see if you'll be back to defend yourself against the truth. You stupid scum. Alright. Moving on. It's just so irritating. Okay, we already did that. I don't know why you delete something, it just fucks everything up. But anyway, great. Keep videos coming. Okay, well, it's alright. Should have at least added a period. It's only 4 words. Okay, here's my question, Tea Party guy. Yeah, well, you're probably not long for this channel. Can you go into detail about the definition of plasma? Why should I? Okay, so you're an electric universe lunatic. I mean, I can't help you. Plasma is just, look, you make something hot. You make it hot enough, all right, and you put a voltage on it, then the parts are going to be pushed off of it, essentially. They're going to be expelled. So you're just taking something and you're kind of just burning it, all right, and the atoms are so energetic that they start pushing each other off the surface and they start flying into space. But that's all plasma is. It's just taking matter in one form and turning it into essentially a gas. And the atoms still have adhesion. They still want to connect to each other, but there isn't enough They can't get past the fact that they're still moving too fast to stick. So it's like you have cheap glue on surfaces. And you can understand that, well, the cheap glue, the stuff hits and it doesn't stick. All right, so that's a plasma. Plasma just means you have a bunch of matter in a form that can't form. It can't stabilize because it's too hot. Okay, and as it cools down, it will stabilize and it'll turn into little clumps and it'll be nothing again. And all a plasma does, though, is does create for you a conductor, because the atoms are connected enough and you can connect. When they bounce into each other, they'll exchange their electrical potential. So they can be a conductor. So electricity can pass through them. That is, a charge differential can pass through them. It's nothing magical, asshole. So yeah, there's things in the universe that are really fucking hot. Okay, and then you put a bunch of them together, like close, semi-close together, like suns, for example, in, say, a galaxy. And all the radiation, okay, there's lots of atoms, lots of jiggling, lots of stuff, and so that creates a kind of plasma. But there's absolutely no evidence that it plays any role other than what the role of heat would be. It's not doing something integral to the function of the universe. It's just radiation in a sense, and it's just dirt in the system. I mean, it doesn't do anything magical. It seems to be the conductive medium for electricity throughout. And where's your example of how a galaxy is polarized in any way? Like, this is the positive galaxy, this is the negative galaxy. This is the positive sun, this is the negative sun. There's absolutely no evidence that they have charge differentials. There's no evidence that there's any electrical potential that needs to run away from one thing and get to the other thing. So until you have some understanding of what charge is the absence of pressure and the existence of pressure. That's what charge is. Charge is an atom with an electron far away, and then the other atom has the electron close, kind of example. That's what charge is. And that needs a balance. That creates an atom that's proton heavy versus an atom that's electron heavy. And so that balance can transfer through atoms. One atom says, you're fat, and so he becomes, I'm 100 pounds, the guy next to me is 200 pounds, we both become 150 pounds. Well, the guy next to me is still 100 pounds, so on the other side of me. And so he agrees, okay, I'll take on some of that. Okay, so he does the split the difference with my 150 pounds, and he becomes 125 pounds, and I'm 125 pounds. Well, now I'm different than the guy next to me over here, because he's still 150. So then we split the difference and go to 112, and that's the transfer of the pressure. Shit for brain. All right, thank you. I'm convinced that if there is no God, then you're convinced by absolutely no evidence, by the way, that we were created by an intelligent species who didn't evolve. Right? So an intelligent species on some other planet who just poofed there. They didn't get there the same fucking evolution process that got us here. No, they had some special evolution. Oh, this is just, you're so fucking desperate to justify. It's just such putrid shit. You probably disagree. I disagree there's any logical reason to sit there and keep avoiding questions by inventing bullshit answers like the Gremlins did it, or my fairy godmother is responsible, she didn't treat me right. You're all looking for fucking excuses somewhere else. And the truth that's sitting right in front of you, you don't like. Oh, I'm related to minkies, I don't like that. Oh, you're so pathetically stupid. But there doesn't seem to be evidence of evolution in the fossil record. Are you insane? But you don't even know how fossils are made. So you just talk shit out of your shit-talking mouth on a subject you're so unqualified to discuss, it's insane. You obviously don't know even a tiny shred of evolution science. You obviously haven't inquired, you haven't informed yourself. You're just talking shit from a completely ignorant position. And what do you want from me as a response except, fuck you, asshole? You're underqualified. Do you understand that word? You're under fucking qualified to have the conversation because you don't know what the fucking fossil record is, and you obviously don't know how fossils are made. You know, only 1 in 1 billion organisms gets fossilized, asshole. It's a very rare privilege to become a fossil, jackass. And so if you're a tiny little community, you know, a little tiny country on Earth, could you understand how, well, if there's only 50,000 people somewhere and the rest of the world is 7 billion, you could understand that the 7 billion are going to have a lot more representations in the record than the 50,000, right? But that's evolutionary theory, dumbass. Evolution doesn't happen in big populations because it would dampen all of the evolution out. Big populations hate things that are different. Little populations, on the other hand, give things that are different lots of latitude because there aren't any bullies to tell them they're being different and they're not allowed to be. And so evolution happens in small populations. So you can understand that small populations aren't as likely to get fossilized. Can you understand that dumb shit? But no, I shouldn't have to explain this to somebody who's spouting things. I'm convinced. You're convinced because you're an idiot. And it's that simple. You're ignorant on the subject, and you're convinced through your ignorance. You're a perfect example of the fuckocracy. And that you pretend to be a Tea Party member that's supposed to be saying, we should have a merit society. Where's your merit, dumbass? You're an ignorant fuck. You have no merit. Your opinion has no meaning because you're stupid as fuck. Anyway, I mean, I didn't do this spouting from ignorance. And then as soon as I got into the subject, I clearly found I have to become more informed. And I did that. Yeah. You know, hours and hours of education. All right. A fish starts to grow legs or something. Yeah, they're actually walking around right now in Texas and in Mexico. There's walking catfish, idiot. There's mud skippers. There's tons of examples of fins with 5 fingers in them walking on the earth. Lots of examples, dumbass. Oh, God. And monkeys are still monkeys. Yeah, that's right, because we have a common ancestor before the monkey. Dumbass. We are still monkeys. Do you believe in intelligent life? Well, not on this dumbass planet, except for, a few exceptions. But yes, it seems quite clear. You're dumb as fucking shit. So I can't call you intelligent life because you don't do common logic. You think you're an expert when you never practiced. You think you can do things that you've never qualified yourself to do, that you've never even tried. You're just an expert automatically. Could we be their clone experiment? Fuck you. Could Bugs Bunny be the source of the universe? Well, I can't prove he couldn't be. Except logically. I can explain, no, he's a drawing on a piece of paper. Oh, fuck. Just fuck. You're too fucking stupid. Alright. This is so depressing. Alright, talk about hard to understand. Listen to him ramble about. Methinks this fellow has vaped a little too much old Toby. Oh, like again, I couldn't say this about your fucking mother. I couldn't talk about what kind of skanky shit she's had up her hoozes. Yeah, it's really easy to do, fuckhead. Sorry, but I've been checking out many physics types videos. Well, apparently not with physics arguments in them. With an open mind. Yeah, well, you don't have one. You don't have any reasoning skills, clearly. You don't understand the nature of an argument. The nature of an argument isn't to sit there and talk complete useless shit. The nature of the argument is to make counter arguments to what's been proposed. So why don't you explain to me how electrons can't be the magnetic monopole? Why don't you do that, fuckhead? Ken Wheeler seems to make more sense than anyone. To who? retards. I mean, can I test you on how fucking stupid you are? I mean, you really have to be an idiot. I mean, what do you believe in? Do you believe in there's some kind of a special kind of dielectricity? That there's not like just there's electricity and then there's some kind of special kind of dielectricity? Do you believe that? And why do you believe that? This fellow seems very vindictive towards Mr. Wheeler. I'm vindictive in the sense that I hate liars, and he's a fucking liar. And I despise misinformation, and he's just spouting a bunch of things that are provably not true. Light doesn't get bent in any ferrocell. You can see it under a microscope. Are you too stupid to sit there and recognize that? Especially in his other videos. I'm not sure what that means. Not sure why. Do I sense jealousy? No, I resent liars and cowards. Okay, and Ken Wheeler's a coward. He picks on dead people. Other people have responded to his crap. I mean, the rational science guy has critiqued his bad physics. Where's Ken Wheeler's defense of his bad physics? Oh, that's right, he's too much of a coward. Jeez. Pac-Man, I don't know what the fuck that means. I've also heard about the men in the little rowboats here. Yeah, so any analogy, you'll just sit there and say, okay, don't bother making analogies because I'm just going to say men in little rowboats and somehow defeat the argument. The fact is that's how the universe works, and it's proven that way. What are you going to say? What's going to be your apology for your own behavior? I mean, it's a way of making it understandable. But see, you're too stupid to understand, the real mechanisms. So people have to put it in some sort of visual aid for you. You need visual aids, but you don't have enough imagination to figure it out for yourself. But the fact is that's what's happening. It's an exchange. Electrons exchange. All right. Now, how would you analogize exchange? Like if you went to the bank and you wanted to exchange your money, you wanted to fill your battery of your account, you wouldn't use an analogy like that. Oh, of course you would. And if somebody ridiculed your idea that, oh yeah, you can build a reservoir of money in a bank account, if somebody wants to ridicule that idea, they should just ridicule the analogy. You're such an asshole. Again, I hate to speak negatively to anyone, of anyone. Well, why? You'd hate to speak negatively of Hitler? Hitler was a great guy. I nothing against him. What's Custer? I mean, what standard do I apply before you decide, well, maybe I should hate that? So I'll just say that I don't think anyone seeking the truth of things will find much of it here. Well, the fact is that what they won't find here is any of you little cowards having the guts to face me, okay? Allow me to interrogate your knowledge and to see what the fuck you know about anything, how you're qualified to have an opinion, even. And you won't see any rational counter-arguments. You won't see any physics. There's no physics in your fucking argument, is there? No, there's no physics at all. Not a single shred of physics in your fucking argument. Not a single quote of mine that you somehow dismantled logically. Nothing. You're just a despicable coward that talks shit. And why should I have any respect at all for humans that do that? Lying pieces of scum who just make shit up, have no qualifications, and just talk shit. So why don't you show up here? Come on, let's see your defense of yourself, you fucking pussy. Alright. Next. Number of seats. So there's a probable distinction between protons and electrons with the number of seats. I'm just saying, look, there's stuff I'm 100% sure of. There's stuff I'm 80% sure of. There's, all kinds of percentages. It just seems, okay, logical to deduce that the real difference between electrons and protons is this factor. That's why protons are in the atom. That's why you don't really have anything called antimatter, where the electrons are in the nucleus and the protons do the outside shit. The reason why there isn't any of that shit, even though they've used that word, is because of this reason, because electrons aren't stable enough to maintain a nucleus. All right, anyway. So uneven electrons jiggle more, and that could explain why protons are in the middle of atoms. Yes. Now let's see what kind of crap you turn this into. All right, do electron protons have fixed number of seats? Well, we already know they have to. From every bit of evidence we have anyway, it's really hard to see any difference in the electrons. So now maybe it's a difference we couldn't detect. So if it has, 46 seats and this one has, 47 seats, maybe that's possible. But I'm just saying the nature of the electron seems to be pretty consistent. So it seems like they probably all have a consistent pattern. That it's the only pattern that can be maintained. So like you have 110, and well, let's say realistically, you have 90 elements that occur in nature, maybe. Just 90 in the entire universe. That's all you can make is this 90 that'll stay together, that are stable. That's all there is. And so maybe there's only 3 ways you can arrange material, to maintain something that would be called an electron. Maybe there's 2. Maybe there's 1. Not that hard to understand. It's a pattern. The electron is a pattern. And it's a pattern that obviously creates a machine, a little device. Anyway. Is that speed preserved based on how many rowers are in a specific direction? As stated, it's just as simple as if there's a total of 50 seats, right? And the rower can be going this way, that way, that way. This doesn't matter. But there's a tendency, okay. Let's not even say it that way. You just do the net. What's the net effect of a guy rowing this way, and a guy rowing this way, and a guy rowing this way, and a guy rowing that way, and then there's another guy this way, and then there's a guy that way, and there's a guy that way. The net effect. So if you have 2 more rowers going this way than you have going that way, you're going to go that way. And I mean 2 more in the sense that one could be going that way and one could be going that way, but we know that way and that way equals that way, right? So I'm just saying you just do the net effect. What's the net effect? That's where the electron goes. It's really simple math, okay? And it just has to do with vectors in a direction, and you just add the vectors, and you'll get a sum, and you get a product, and that's it. All right. If number of seats is fixed, what is the maximum speed of matter bit possible? Well, that's the tricky part, right? Because I'm going to argue that once you get up to a certain speed, you break the pattern. So once you get up to a certain speed, the rowers going this way or going that way aren't going to get dragged along in the pattern anymore. They're not going to be able to have their more complex interactions to stay in the pattern. So essentially you're going to turn the electron into force. It's going to be just swimmers all swimming the same direction. So it's going to be like a little bit of a laser beam or something. It ceases to be an electron, and it just becomes, the boat breaks, and it's just, swimmers on a board going in one direction, that kind of thing. That's why things are really hard to accelerate. As you go faster and faster, it gets harder and harder to accelerate them because there's less and less bits you can change. But anyway, angles. Oh, jeez. So, well, whatever. This is where you just make the physics more complicated than it needs to be. As I just stated, oh yeah, this plus this equals this. It just makes it more complicated than you need to make it. When the force meets opposite matter bits, does it always leave perpendicular? Yes, I've already been over this. The whole Leasing thing, whatever the mechanism is, it's always a perpendicular reaction, and the momentum is always preserved, the direction of it. So even if you hit 2 cue balls right on their edges, it's still considered from in this mechanics, in the kinetics of the foundational universe, it's still a perpendicular reaction. It's still going to be motion in a straight line. This ball will stop, this ball will move at the velocity of the original. It's a full exchange of momentum that fast. Okay. All right. If perpendicularly is it in any of the 0 to 360 directions that is perpendicular to the initial direction. So again, it's there's no the point of me saying perpendicular. Okay, you can't do 360 degrees of perpendicular, fuckhead. It's 180 degrees. Okay, so I don't know what your question is almost too stupid. The argument is there's no scatter. Okay, it doesn't go off in this angle or that angle. There's no mixed fucking angles. Photons don't bounce off of electrons, at an angle. The energy comes into the boat. It's an exchange. The surface is fucking irrelevant. The pattern is irrelevant. The thing is absorbed completely. Not half of his body is in the boat and half of his body is out of the boat. He either gets in the boat or he doesn't get in the boat. That's it. I mean, for example, in 2D, if the force bit always moved right, it's not gonna. The force bits don't move right. That's no point, really. People are just too stupid. Perpendicular force bits would only wander in specific perpendicular parallel paths. So what the fuck could this mean? There's two kinds of force. I mean 2 plus 2 plus 2 physics. So you just don't pay any fucking attention. Just none. I mean, it's just so irritating. There's two kinds of forces. The electron force, the proton force. There's two kinds of matter. The electron, the proton. And there's two kinds of interaction. Jump in the boat, okay, and exchange the opposite direction. The guy who leaves is going exactly the opposite of the direction you were going when you swam into the fucking boat. You're just making a fucking exchange. Or there's a deflection, a completely benign deflection. No energy is absorbed, no energy is changed. The only thing that changes is direction. And it's perpendicular. That's the perpendicular for, see this, you can't even use common words because people say, well, perpendicular is the same wherever you're talking about it. No. I was talking about perpendicular surfaces as a way of understanding how the momentum is always straight on. It's not angular when somebody jumps in the boat. The other argument is the deflections are perpendicular. The boat is got a peak on it. The peak forces a right turn. So when you deflect something, you just change its path. And yes, it could be in any one of the four sub-dimensions. Right? It could go right, it could go left, it could go up, it could go down. It's obviously already going forward. All right. Sorry, but 2 plus 2 plus 2. I mean, come on. All right. After seeing it, so this is perv action. I thought this guy was getting something. He's obviously getting nothing. It's just a waste of time. After seeing an interview with Zoran Dominic, he's like Serbian or something, right? There's no English videos, nothing. There's not even somebody willing to translate the videos, right? I mean, nothing, zero. I forwarded him to your channel link. Well, how exciting. So it's like saying some Japanese Eric Dullard or something. I should give a fuck. You think I need to communicate with some Serbian who apparently doesn't speak English to talk about how to reform, or whatever this is, a physicist who says he attempted to uncomplicate physics in major institutions. Well, how exactly did he do that? What the fuck are you talking about? You think this is useful? Oh, amazing. I think it's safe to leave you the email address. For what purpose? That was in the interview video description here. Again, for what? If you want to contact him about fucking what? Who the fuck is he? How the fuck do you think I have nothing better to do with my goddamn time than talk to some fucking tinfoil hat lunatic? Have you seen a dissident who hasn't earned their tinfoil hat? Is there a single other dissident out there who hasn't thoroughly earned it? Fuck. I mean, just so fucking irritating. If you want to contact him, remove the spaces before and after. Yes, I could figure that out. I think you can post email addresses, but who the fuck cares? I mean, a completely unreferenced nothing. You're saying absolutely nothing to me. All right. So anyway, that other asshole from before, I did go to his channel, right? This douchebag, Petra Khan. Just crap videos, of course. 8 years ago, he gave up. I just thought it was kind of funny. 666 views. So I said, oh, I got to click on that. Right? I mean, yeah, it's just coincidences are fun. So I'll speed this up, but this is what he thinks physics is. Music's actually better sped up, but I probably should just turn it off. Well, it makes it a little bit more interesting, you know. So he's just going through in some kind of not in proper chronological order some of the inventions and discoveries throughout the ages. You know, and they're like water clock and the lever and, you know, perpendicular gears, and, you know, there's a real good lever example. You know, yeah, so we started to figure something out. And he shows some fucking statues. Who the fuck cares? I mean, there are no names under them, and even if there was, why would I give a fuck? You know, physics is about these people, you know, and but this is his contribution to science. This mush. I mean, it is mush, right? I mean, this is not very useful as science. Is this showing why apples fall off of trees and hit the ground? No. Does this have anything really to do with anything? And of course, Newton isn't in here, right? So, you know, some of the, it's just all this, you know, archaic stuff that he likes. There's no images of Tesla, by the way, either, but, you know, I'm just saying. What does this have to do with anything? Why should I care? Why is this interesting? Why is especially that bad art in Olympics interesting? What is that? That's science? Oh, the Colosseum, the place where they fed people to lions. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, that's real scientific. That's what all the high-minded people do. I'd feed you people to lions. I really would. You know, so feeding people to lions is a good idea. Making it a spectator sport, that's just rude. So this is, you know, this is great science video. Yeah, oh yeah, I'm really learning a lot. Oh yeah, that's really got me going. So this is an asshole critiquing anyone else's science. Some asshole who thinks, oh yeah, this is really great stuff. This tells me everything I need to know. No. So he goes from old, does some modern, and then goes right back to the old shit again. For what purpose? Oh yeah, this is great science here. Great science. Who's that? Mary? Caesar? The science of micropenises? So that was really great science video. So he calls it the light. Sorry. So that just indicates he misrepresents things. Falsely titles them. See if he has any description. The ancient Hellenistic period was an astonishing example of what human civilization can achieve. Well, frankly, the 100 years from, 1900, well, the 50 years even, from 1900 to 1950 was a lot more incredible. The candle of enlightenment was lit by those noisy, curious Greeks. Oh, so he's a Greek guy, probably. That were clearly ahead of their time. I'm not going to diss it. Yeah, I mean, civilization was great. They created leisure, They created the ability to, have slaves and all that fun stuff, and blah, 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 blah. Feed them to the lions. If the ancient Greeks were allowed to continue uninterrupted until this very day, humans would have landed on the moon 500 years ago. Well, clearly we really fucked ourselves over royally by doing this whole religion thing, and clearly the religious people hated science, so clearly they destroyed progress. And they're still doing it, frankly. What you see today in Western societies has its fundament roots firmly embedded in the ancient Hellenistic Enlightenment epoch. I see idiocracy today. So I don't know. So you want to blame the Greeks for idiocracy? We owe a lot to them. Well, apparently we don't. Because the world sucks. I don't know whether you've taken a look at it, but it sucks. It's so fucking retarded. My first musical composition that was recorded in the mid-'80s has found a home amongst these Greek freaks of integrity. So, I don't even know what that means. You're calling them freaks. But anyway, so he just needed an excuse to put his music to a video. I hated your music, by the way. I was saying to myself, these assholes who put music on science videos just really irritate the fuck out of me. This whole assumption that your tastes are my tastes, really annoying. It's so hard to find people who have the same taste in music. I mean, come on. It's not like a potato chip. There is no universal music. Well, there is some stuff that's pretty hard for anybody to complain about, I'd say that. But anyway, so, fuck you. Yeah. Great science video, thanks. I feel so privileged. What the fuck, where did it go? Oh, there's this stupid channel. Okay, enough of that. Alright, so we could do a couple of definitions maybe, and call it a day. So what have I worked on lately? Oh yeah, so I did a rewrite of that. Oh, I haven't done the wave and all the rest. I have to add it yet. So I guess I'll save that for the next time. So that the other words I'm going to do are velocity, acceleration, momentum, wave, and ray. Because these are way they're poorly understood as concepts. So we'll get to those. And again, even the word energy, I say a field in balance, but it doesn't really say it, right? The energy is in the fact that there is this idea of something going left and something going right, and that in itself is the origin of the concept of energy, in the sense of this having a dimensional opposite, you could argue, or something. So there's a more rudimentary definition. I just haven't quite found the words to say that yet. But clearly, for our purposes, it is true, since this asshole brought up energy, that when we see energy, it's because we see the imbalance. And again, when I'm being pushed into the earth, we don't see it. So it's like it doesn't look like energy because we don't see me moving. But the energy's inside of me. The stuff is moving up and the stuff is moving down. And I can feel it if I try. I can say, oh yeah, I can feel my ass, on the pushing, getting pushed. I can feel the pressure points. So there is energy there. It's just not as obvious as when you're falling, when you have room to fall, when there's space to allow the imbalance to show itself by showing us some movement. The movement, see, the Earth's movement is inside of it. The stuff swirling around molten. That heat is evidence of the Earth in being in a energetic position, if you want to say it that way, or having energy. So there are places you can see it and find it, but you have to look for it. But it's just the imbalance. The part that we see is the imbalance. If the imbalance isn't visual, then we say there's no energy, but it's there. All right. Yeah. Well, anyway. That's enough. No, I'm not going to apologize for being irritable and maybe more hostile than is necessary in responding. But there's a point where you just get so sick of people. And I'm just so sick of these lame arguments. Ugh. You know, and just in such an overtly unaccountable way. I mean, do I have to actually say it in every video? Do I have to actually ask you to answer one of my questions, just one of them? Why in the single slit does the photon split in two? Why does it do it? Why? Mechanically, why? If I put a single photon into an interferometer, what will it do? Where will it wave function and interfere with itself? Yeah. And why isn't the electron a perfect candidate for being a magnetic monopole? Can you answer one of those questions? All right. So, till the next time. I mean, if you're going to be a critic, that should be your obligation, right? I think. So, till the next time and such.